Hey there guys, welcome back to the channel. I don't know about you guys, but I've been getting really hyped for Season 2 of Monarch, Legacy of Monsters. I just watched the pilot the other day, and from what I've seen so far, Titan X looks extremely cool, and I'm really excited that Legendary seems to be allowing for such an original kaiju to have so much screen time. I know we all love Godzilla, Kong, Mothra, Ghidorah, Rodan, and all the other big names, but it's kind of easy to forget just how many new original kaiju the Monsterverse has given birth to. So to celebrate the new season of Monarch and just the Monsterverse in general, I thought it'd be fun to make a video ranking all the different original monsters that this cinematic universe has given us. So before I begin, it's important to note that this list won't contain every monster in the Monsterverse. So if your favorite monster is some little lemur creature from Skull Island that had one appearance hiding in the background of a comic panel from 2021, then there's a pretty high chance it's not going to be on this list, okay? Also, if it's a Titan that only exists in name, like on a monitor in King of the Monsters and hasn't actually been revealed yet, then they're also not going to be on this list. That being said, I did try my best to include every Titan or creature that has a substantial amount of screen time, as well as anyone with a sizable role in ancillary media like the comics or the video games. So, without further ado, strap in because we're just going to get right into it, okay? So coming in at dead last are the Verticines. These guys were introduced in the New Empire, and while I do think that some of the original concept art made for them seemed interesting, what we ended up with was pretty ugly. They're basically just really chopped versions of the Banshees from Avatar, and they're one of the only Monsterverse designs that I genuinely dislike. I think they should have just gone with the ideas from some of those original concepts because they're all just way cooler than what we got. Some of the art reminds me of something out of Dune, like the Jodorowsky version that he was working on. I don't know if you guys have seen that documentary, but it's original, it's psychedelic, very alien, and also this one kind of looks like Megagyrus, and I love Megagyrus, so there's that. So I'll be honest, I totally forgot that these guys existed. I mean, can you really blame me? The Endoswarmers are extremely generic looking, and the Endopede isn't much more memorable either. The scenes that they were in were dark, they moved really quickly and sporadically, and the CG was just a little meh. I feel like I barely got a good enough look at them to really form much of an opinion at all. They're just generic insectoid creatures without much personality. They aren't offensively bad by any means, but they're instantly forgettable. From what I can tell, the Mantleclaw is just a giant crab, and that's basically it. My least favorite kaiju, Toho or otherwise, are usually just the ones that are bigger versions of real animals, so anything that's just kind of been supersized up, like Kumonga or Kamacuras, or, you know, the Mantleclaw. So naturally, this really doesn't do much for me. The only big scene that I can think of that the Mantleclaw has had is at the beginning of Season 1, where it's fighting the Mother Longlegs. And I just don't really like that scene. The CG's kind of bad, and it's very weird just in general. So yeah, I don't have a lot of fond things to say about the Mantleclaw. I think I'm ready to move on. What do I say about the great apes? I mean, they're great apes, just really big monkeys. The designs here range a little between the different members of the species, but they're all just, again, supersized versions of a real-life animal. And like I said before, I never find that very exciting. Characters like Kong, Zuko, and Scar King stand out a little bit due to their personalities, but the generic great ape doesn't really do much to excite me. I kind of hope we see less of them down the line, if I'm being honest, because I actually think they make Kong feel a lot less special overall. Like, imagine if Godzilla went to the Hollow Earth and there was just, 100 other Godzillas chilling down there. I feel like we'd all think that's kind of lame. So moving on, we've got the Wart Dogs. The Wart Dogs were introduced in the New Empire, and I'm not the biggest fan of them. I can see the vision with the whole warthog/dog fusion, but I think they just kind of ended up looking like severely disabled wolves. The green blood also bothers me for some reason, not entirely sure why. Other than the design stuff, they're just very weak, and they didn't even have the nuts to take on Kong with a 3-1 advantage. I guess I can't really blame them though. If I saw Kong rip a member of my species clean in half, I'd probably have to walk away too. Next up, we've got the Queen Muto/Muto Prime. So, before you get mad at me, I know these are technically different creatures, but I don't care. I'm just gonna lump them together because I have the same problems with both of them. Don't get me wrong, I love the Mutos in 2014. They are excellently designed and instantly iconic. They serve their purpose and they made for great antagonists. However, I cannot overstate just how little I needed more of them. The Queen Muto is just kind of whatever, but Muto Prime, on the other hand, is a total abomination. This thing is so ugly. It looks like a dollar bin Temu version of Orga. The arms look ridiculous. The silhouette is overly complicated and ugly. I just hate it. I also don't understand, lore-wise, why Godzilla would allow any Mutos to go on living, considering they're a parasite that specifically feeds off the Gojira species. Couldn't the queen also breed and spread more Mutos around the planet? Why would Godzilla just be cool with that risk? I don't know. I really dislike that they kept bringing the Mutos back. I feel like it muddied up the world building and it cheapened everything about the original pair. Yeah, I'm not sure if you guys feel the same way, but if you watched my last video, you probably already know that I am no fan of Zuko's. I don't really like anything about him, if I'm being honest. I don't like the idea of shoehorning a marketable baby character into the Monsterverse. I don't like how weird he looks when he's compared to Kong as a juvenile. Like, seriously? Like, are we for real with this? And I just don't like his character. And again, like I said with the Great Apes, he's just a big monkey at the end of the day, and we already have enough of those. He's clearly just here to sell plushies, and I hope he doesn't take up too much valuable screen time moving forwards because, I don't know, I have no interest in him at all. So, we've got another new Empire monster here, and I don't feel much better about it. The Drowned Viper's design is pretty generic. The colors are cool, but it kind of just feels like a water version of a Warbat, and I feel like they could have come up with something a little more unique for the scene. It also makes Tiamat feel less special. Not only because it's, another giant water serpent, but also because it's actually quite a bit bigger than she is if you pay attention to the scale. Anyways, between the Drowned Viper, the Warbats, Tiamat, and the unnamed dead Super Titan, the one that Kong walks across like a bridge, the Monsterverse really seems to have a penchant for big, serpentine, snake-like creatures, and it's starting to get a little old. I'll give the Kraken some points for its personality, because I really like how mean it is. This monster seems to have a lot of fun messing with Kong, and it makes for a decent villain. My problem with it, and the reason it's so low on this list, is because I personally think the Kraken is severely over-designed. Like, come on, just look at this thing. It's got a bunch of tentacles. Some of the tentacles look like octopus tentacles. Some of them look like squid tentacles. Some of the tentacles have these barbed hooks on them. But there are also a bunch of these smaller, red, rope-like tentacles that can electrocute or poison enemies. It also has giant crab claws, a whale body, a fish tail, this big, long, xenomorph-looking head, 4 eyes, a squid beak that also has teeth for some reason, and are those whiskers? I don't know. There's just way too much going on here. It's overwhelming to look at, and maybe that's by design, Maybe the creators wanted it to have this sort of incomprehensible Lovecraftian design, but regardless, I just don't like it. I think it's all, a little too much. Anyways, better luck next time, Megamind. I'm sure somebody out there loves you. Alright, so I guess we're doing 2 Octopus Titans back to back, huh? Well, Nikika isn't as overly designed as the Kraken, but she isn't very notable either. She looks like a really ugly octopus with some webbing in between the tentacles. I'd probably label her as one of the biggest frauds in the Monsterverse too, because despite being, one of the smartest titans ever, she still managed to get completely outmaneuvered by some fisherman in a net. Other than that, I don't have a lot to say about Nikika, because I don't think there really is much to say about Nikika. She's a very underwhelming titan altogether, and she definitely deserves a spot near the back of this list. Alright, so next up we've got the Skur Buffalo. Skur with an E. This whole time I thought it was Scar Buffalo, but apparently I was wrong. This guy's cool. I like the moss that's dripping off of his horns. I think that's nice. It's a buffalo. Really, what else is there to say? I like that Kong saves his life. It makes for a little sweet scene. He's not terrible or anything, but I definitely can't justify putting him any higher than this. Alright, the Bramble Boar. So we kind of have another warthog-looking guy here, but I prefer the Bramble Boar over the warthogs. He's got a decent design, but he's a little lower on the list because A, he doesn't really make much of an impression. He doesn't have much screen time. And B, he's a little messy looking. I think the branches all over his back are just a tiny bit overstated, and they kind of distract from the horns and the stuff that he's got going on in the front of his face. Regardless though, he's still pretty neat, and I'm happy we saw a little bit more of him in the second season of Monarch. Hopefully, we'll see even more. I'm excited for that. Next up, we've got the Leaf Wings, and these guys have been around for a while. They debuted in Kong Skull Island, and I like them. I like their little saw piece that they have at the top of their head, and it's cool that they can use, their wings as natural camouflage. They also get a pretty fun scene in Kong Skull Island where they just kind of brutally rip apart that one guy. They're certainly a fun little addition to the world of Skull Island. They aren't the most unique as far as creature designs go, but I like them. I don't think I can really put them much higher than this though, just because there's so much better stuff out there in the Monsterverse. I haven't read Godzilla Awakening in years, but I do remember liking it. I'm pretty sure it isn't canon anymore, but oh well, that's the risky run when you're a Monsterverse comic, I guess. I remember thinking Shinomura was alright, but it didn't wow me or anything. It being composed of smaller organisms is pretty cool, and it reminds me a lot of Hedorah and Destroya, which, that's not a bad thing. I think my biggest problem with this monster, and the reason I can't really fall in love with it, is that it's just kind of hard to get a read of its physicality. Since it's made of all these millions of little monsters, it's constantly changing, and there are parts of itself that always seem to be floating in the air nearby. The silhouette is very hard to nail down and a little convoluted. There's also just way too much happening on this tail. I don't know why that bothers me, but it does. There are barbs on the side, a big spike on the end, the width changes a bunch, there are these weird bumps and ridges and lines all over it. Like, seriously, what is going on? It seems messy, but maybe that's by design based on the way the monster functions, with a always changing biology. Either ways, I don't really love it. I think the metallic blue color makes this guy stand out just a little bit, but there isn't much else to take note of. Okay, so I think some people are gonna argue that the Rock Claw and the Mantle Claw are the same creature, and honestly they might be, but I don't know, they just look different in the scenes that they're in. So I'm gonna put the Rock Claw here, and I'll leave the Mantle Claw at the beginning because the Rock Claw doesn't look exactly like a giant crab in the way that the Mantle Claw does. It has a few differences. Anyways, the Rock Claws don't have much screen time, but they provide Doug with a hearty meal, so I'd say they're pretty important. I like the big crab-like claws in the front and the nastier, spidery, almost fleshy looking legs in the back. That clash of textures is really cool, and it reminds me of something that you'd see in, Gears of War, like a part of the Locust Horde. Hopefully we'll see these guys again sometime soon. Okay, Methuselah is a weird one because he's undeniably cool, but we really don't see enough of him to get a full understanding of his character. I'm not sure we ever even get a full body shot of him, so I feel like I barely know what he looks like. He's only got about 30 seconds of screen time, and unfortunately that's all he's ever gonna get. If you don't know, Legendary was sued by another company called Summit Kaiju International, who claimed that Methuselah looked a lot like one of their own personal kaiju. Yada yada yada, I don't really know enough about the legal stuff to give my input on it, but the gist of it is that we're never gonna see Methuselah again. He's been wiped clean from the canon. Anyways, like I said before, he's cool looking. I like the idea of a kaiju so big and so old that a mountain formed on its back over the course of Earth's history. Not the most original idea, clearly, but he's still pretty dope. His awakening scene, or shot, I guess, in King of the Monsters was very striking, but it wasn't enough for me to feel comfortable putting him any higher on this list. Maybe in another world he would have become a fan favorite, but unfortunately that's just not the world we live in. So Scylla is just alright. Honestly, I think her design's a little messy, but maybe that's just me. She's been around a while and she's got a lot of screen time and comic book appearances and stuff, but she's always failed to leave a lasting impression on me. I think the whole tentacle mouth thing is really unimaginative and kind of tired when it comes to monster designs, and we've already gotten a lot of other spiders and crabs in the Monsterverse that I think are a bit more unique, honestly. The one thing I like about her is the hermit crab shell on her back, but at the same time it's way too small for her body to realistically fit into, so it kind of negates the evolutionary need for one in the first place. I feel like a version of Scylla with a shell that's 3 or 4 times bigger would have looked a lot cooler, but it is what it is. I may not love her, but I still gotta pay respects to the dead. R.I.P. Scylla, you put up a good fight. I think that Titanus Amaluk has a pretty fascinating design. Am I saying that right? Amaluk? Amaluk? I'm gonna say Amaluk. He kind of reminds me of a Monsterverse version of Biollante, just, not nearly as good. But yeah, the pops of blue are nice, and I like the glowing eyes too. As far as I can tell, he's pretty powerful. He was able to destroy one of Behemoth's tusks. I don't know if this is just me, but the multiple eyes and all the vines really remind me of those squid robots from the Matrix. The Sentinels, I'm pretty sure that's what they're called. Yeah, they remind me of them. Amhaluk's power set seems a little all over the place, considering he has stretchy limbs and apparently telekinesis too. I feel like the creators might have been doing a little bit too much with this guy. He just seems like a product of too many ideas. But he's not bad or anything. At least he's original, and it's pretty nice to see a monster that takes inspiration from some other elements of nature, other than just a mix of these two animals or a big version of this animal. Like, it's cool that it's like, you know, he's part of the forest kind of thing. I like that. I'm pretty sure he's still alive and well in the verse too, so it'd be cool to catch a glimpse of him in live action eventually. Okay, let's talk about the fan favorite, the people's princess himself, Titanus Doug. So I like the story of Doug more than I like his design. I think it's cool that the whole fandom rallied around this guy and he became popular enough to warrant some extended screen time in the new Empire. He's a funny looking little kaiju, and I really like how expressive he is. I'd probably put him a bit higher on the list, but his design's a bit too plain for my tastes. He's basically just a supersized lizard, albeit a little bit more jacked. I think the club tail is probably my favorite thing that Doug brings to the table. I mean, besides his smile, of course. But it isn't really enough to make him stand out from his counterparts. His design might not break a lot of new ground, but Doug's personality is what gives him an edge over a lot of the other monsters in the verse. He's a silly little guy, and we all love him for it. Hopefully, we'll get even more Doug screen time in Supernova. Moving on to the Spore Mantis. The Spore Mantis is really cool. It's a simple idea, but it's executed very well. The natural camouflage makes for a really crazy scene, and the way the head pokes out of the log just looks so creepy and gross. Anyways, this creature doesn't really stick around for very long, but I like it. Maybe we'll see it again down the line at some point. Yuggoth. God, these names. Yuggoth isn't a Titan that I have a lot to say about necessarily, but I think he's pretty well designed. The silhouette is very cartoony, but not in a bad way. He really reminds me of a monster that you'd see in a video game, kind of like Gigabash, Skylanders, or Rampage Total Destruction. One of the best games ever, by the way. Anyways, I think it's cool that his spores allow him to control other smaller monsters, kind of like something out of The Last of Us, and it makes him a great kaiju for a story set on an island full of monsters. I like his big mushroom head, the big massive club hands, and his whole aura overall. He just seems like a fun guy. Get it? Fun guy? Like a mushroom? Sorry. Frostvark. So the Frostvark is a nasty little bugger. I like that he's the perfect size to pose a threat to the human characters, and I think he's got a pretty sweet design too. He reminds me a lot of a pangolin, which is one of my all-time favorite animals. I'm not the biggest fan of the mouth tentacle things, but they do make him kind of look like a star-nosed mole, and I guess that's kind of cool. I also like that he has elemental powers, and I really like the way those powers look on screen. It makes me feel like he might be some sort of distant relative to Shimo, and that's pretty sweet. He's got a solid amount of screen time, he's unique, and he makes for a very threatening presence throughout the first leg of Monarch. I like him. I'm really conflicted on the Ion Dragon. First, let me just say that I love the idea. I think it's dope to have a very classic Lord of the Rings, Skyrim-looking dragon, but one that pulls inspiration from various real-life animals. I love that this has the look of a fantasy creature, but it could still be a realistic result of evolution on Earth. The wings are similar to something you'd see on a flying fish, the horns are very bovine-like, the skin is slippery and reminds me of an eel, and the head almost looks like some sort of demonic salmon. The team behind Monarch clearly took their time designing this guy, and it's hard not to appreciate just how much effort they put into making something unique. With that being said, my biggest issue with the dragon is that from certain angles he just looks really goofy. Like, it's hard to describe exactly, but there's just something off about him, especially when you're looking head on. I also think that just generally speaking, the Ion Dragon was pretty underwhelming as an antagonist. He puts up a decent fight against Godzilla for all of 20 seconds before he gets absolutely pulverized into oblivion. And I mean, obviously Godzilla's no easy opponent, but I really feel like it could have lasted a little bit longer, you know, maybe if he had the right attitude. Anyways, I still really like the Ion Dragon. I just feel like he had a lot of potential and he could have been one of the higher ups on this list, but a few too many things just fell flat for me. Behemoth is a classic gentle giant, and I vibe with him. I like how unique he is amongst the rest of the Monsterverse roster. We get a lot of crabs, bugs, and reptiles, so it's nice to see a mammalian titan, especially one that isn't just, a big monkey. I don't love everything about this design, but the silhouette is very striking. He's like a mix of an elephant and a sloth. I also love the overgrowth of vines all over his tusks. That's a nice touch. I'd say my main complaints with him are that those tusks are just a little too big, like they're kind of comically large, and his snout looks like it should continue into an elephant trunk, but it just doesn't. I'm also not huge on the weird rocky spine. It looks like some sort of bone deformity, and it's kind of gross, but not in a good way. Honestly though, those are mostly nitpicks, because overall I think this is a pretty great design. Out of all the original Titans that were revealed in King of the Monsters, I'd say Behemoth's probably my favorite. The Mother Longlegs has one of my favorite reveals in all of the Monsterverse. That scene in Skull Island in the forest was some genuinely terrifying stuff, and it has stuck with me throughout all these years. The thought of a 30-foot tall spider with legs long enough to use bamboo shoots as its natural camouflage, that is pure nightmare fuel. Also, the weird fleshy webbing it uses is disgusting and freaky as hell too. Everything about this guy is screaming, kill it with fire, and I absolutely love that. Out of all the original creatures we've gotten in the verse, I'd say this one is probably the scariest. The Mother Longlegs has a great design, its camouflage gives it a really unique evolutionary advantage, and it gets a fantastic scene all to its own with plenty of well-utilized screen time. I love this one. Okay, I think you guys are gonna call me crazy for this one. I know it's weird to put the Hellhawks so much higher on this list than some of the other monsters, but just hear me out, okay? There is something so off-putting and disgusting about these guys, and they make me laugh every single time I watch that scene in GVK. Like, dude, they're just so ugly. They remind me of some sort of possessed hag that you'd see running around in an Evil Dead movie, like that one in the basement in Evil Dead 2, you know what I mean? Anyways, I think they actually kind of stay true to the spirit of older Toho kaiju in this weird way, because they're a bit of a mishmash of different animals that you'd find in nature. They're like a freaky chicken bat mixture, but they've also got these disgusting hunched backs that almost look like dorsal plates. Really cool design. They're like these evil demon chickens fresh off the cover of a death metal record, you know what I mean? Titanus Abaddon. Okay, now we're getting into the really good stuff. So I've never actually played Survival Instinct, but this Titan design is absolutely wicked. It's another one of those designs that are just so effective in their simplicity. It's a spider with a giant skull for a body. Like, that's just freaky. It also has a mouth similar to that of a person with a jaw and like a full set of teeth. Can you imagine that? You go outside for a smoke on the patio and you see a 100-foot tall spider with a full set of teeth smiling at you? Yeah, like, pack it up, bro. You can just kill me now, honestly. I also really like how much world building you can infer just from this guy's characteristics. Like, the name Abaddon implies that there's some sort of biblical connection here, and it's cool to think that the primitive humans who might have seen the skull would take it as this grave omen. Obviously, it's more likely some sort of camouflage so that it was able to prey on the great apes, but it would make sense that early humans would think that this creature was some sort of unholy beast designed to torment them. Stuff like that really makes the Monsterverse feel alive, and I love thinking about how all these creatures would impact different religions and cultures throughout their life cycles. It's also implied in one of the comics that Abaddon is actually the mother of all spiders, meaning that she's technically the mother of the Mother Longlegs, which is, of course, absolutely disgusting. No thank you. So I love Shimo because I feel like out of all the original monsters in the Monsterverse, Shimo would feel the most at home in a Toho movie. I feel like when I look at Shimo, I just see a guy in a rubber suit, you know what I mean? And that's totally a compliment, by the way. That's not derogatory in the slightest. I love Suitmation, I love classic Toho monsters, and Shimo just really gives me that vibe. Her design is simple and effective, the silhouette is clean, and she even has her own beam attack. The stark white contrasts nicely with the purple, and the little pearlescent scales are this great touch. The spikes on her back really remind me of Anguirus, and specifically more so Crystalak, for any of you out there with some Elite Ball knowledge. My biggest issue with Shimo is that, similar to the Ion Dragon, she just looks really weird from certain angles. Like, what is this picture? What happened to her eyes? I think her smushed in turtle beak kind of lends itself to some pretty unflattering angles, and I also think that Shimo kind of brings a confused grandma vibe to the function that makes her feel a little weaker than the other Titans despite her immense size and power. Like, it's hard to take her seriously as a threat when the fraud king himself was able to jump her and basically use her as his foot soldier. I like her, but I feel like she was a little underutilized in her big debut. The Warbats are probably my favorite of the Hollow Earth monsters. They're the first monsters we're introduced to down there, and they make a hell of an impression. From the jump, they get in a 2v1 against Kong, and they come extremely close to killing him. Besides their feats, they're just really cool looking. These are the exact kind of monsters I love seeing. The Warbats pull so much inspiration from different animals, but they coalesce in this really seamless way. You've got the serpentine body, the bat-like wings, warthog tusks, some crocodilian features like the jaw and the osteoderms, and a little bit of inspiration taken from the Mutos too, with a few nice pops of red running throughout the design. I love everything about them, and they definitely deserve to be this high up on the list. The Warbats are a great threat for Kong, and they serve as a perfect introduction to the Hollow Earth, demonstrating immediately just how hostile and alien this new world is. Oh, also, I think it's kind of fun to note just how similar they look to the dragons from Dragon Wars. Anybody else seen that movie? No? Okay. I adore Titanus Camazotz. His design is just so badass. Like, look at this thing. He looks like a mix between a bat, a bull, and a dragon. He also has these massive, demonic red eyes that remind me so much of Megagyrus, who I love. I think I've said that a few times now. If you're new to this channel, I love Megagyrus. Seriously, top tier kaiju. Anyways, his barbed wings are deadly, his sonic blast is cool, and I love that he controls this swarm of little minion bats. He's strong, well-designed, and a great addition to the Monsterverse's roster of winged titans. It's a real shame that this guy only exists in the comics because I would love to see a fully realized CG model of him used in one of the movies. As far as I know, he's still alive and well, so hopefully he'll get the Tiamat treatment and we'll get to see him sometime in the future. Alright, so I know I've been giving the monkeys a bit of a hard time on this list so far, but I actually do really like Scar King. He's creepy, expressive, and occasionally very funny. I also like the redhead representation because us gingers, we gotta stick together. It seems like Scar King has been designed from the ground up to provide the perfect foil for Kong, and I appreciate all the effort they put into his design. I really like that instead of making Scar King bigger and more physically threatening, they decided to make a villain that was actually smaller than Kong, but lankier, more agile, and twice as cunning. They even applied this philosophy to his choice of weaponry. Kong's axe is this instrument of brute force, but Scar's bone whip requires a skilled, calculated hand with likely centuries of practice. He's smart enough to become the dictator of the Great Apes, and he was able to capture and weaponize Shimo, the largest titan in the Monsterverse. I think he'd be even higher up on this list if he actually managed to put up a good fight against Godzilla, but he proved himself to be a bit of a fraud during the Battle of Rio. Like, he got his ass thoroughly whipped. But, I still got a lot of love for him. I just wish he was in a better movie, if I'm being honest. I am not the biggest New Empire guy, but, respect to those who are. The Skullcrawlers joined the Mutos as some of the longest-running antagonists in the Monsterverse, dating all the way back to 2017. These guys are extremely menacing, and they've killed plenty of Kongs throughout the history of their species, including Kong's parents. They range in size from 12 feet to over 100 feet long, making them a worthy threat for both humans and titans alike. Their design is sleek and uncomplicated. They're basically crocodile snake hybrids, with their most notable feature being the exposed bone at the tip of their jaw. The Skullcrawlers are a perfect example of good monster design because you can tell a lot about their personalities just by looking at them. They're sneaky, vicious, and downright evil, and all of that comes across in their features. I'm a huge fan of these guys, and I'm happy that they're still popping up in the movies and the comics now and then. So coming in at a very close second place is Tiamat. Guys, I love Tiamat so much. This design is just chef's kiss. Seriously. A huge problem I have with the Monsterverse, just in general, is that a lot of their original kaijus are designed to look as tough and badass as possible, and that doesn't leave a lot of room for awe or wonder, you know what I mean? Even with characters like Mothra, who's supposed to be the, epitome of beauty, the Monsterverse tends to prioritize strength over grace, giving her this really battle-hardened appearance, in King of the Monsters. I think Tiamat stands out in this regard because she is a genuinely beautiful titan. I love the stunning pink bioluminescence, the frills around her head that look like cherry blossoms, and the way that her design seems to be paying homage to these serpentine dragons of Japanese mythology. She reminds me a lot of Manda from the Toho movies, but in my opinion, she actually looks a bit better. She's unique, she has a very timeless look, and she's unfortunately very, very dead. It sucks that Godzilla had to go and turn her into sushi, but she made quite the impression with her limited screen time. I'm happy she was able to make the jump from comic to film, because the translation here was just gorgeous. I'm a big collector, and I'm telling you, that Haya toy cannot release soon enough. That thing just looks incredible. Coming in at first place, very near and dear to my heart, it is of course the Mutos. With the Mutos, Gareth Edwards and his team created brand new Godzilla antagonists that fully captured the potential of CG. The Mutos are so alien looking, but they aren't over-designed in the slightest. The red eyes, the slick skin, and the angular bodies are so otherworldly and completely unlike anything I'd seen in any monster movie at the time. They kind of felt like a greatest hits of a lot of the different Toho creatures rolled into one. They're slightly insectoid like Mothra or Kamacuras, and the male Muto has a flight pattern very similar to that of Rodan's, especially in that one shot where it shoots by the window. Like, that was giving such Final Wars vibes. I loved it. On the other hand, you have the female Muto, who has this very hulking silhouette that's similar to Orga, but at the same time she's a brood mother, a lot like Megagyrus. The Mutos are reminiscent of these monsters, sure, but they're wholly unique at the same time. They're also the only monsters that I can think of that come as a pair, which is fun because they get to tag team Godzilla, and it makes for a hell of a fight. This is also a great move on the part of the filmmakers, because having two monsters means Godzilla is fighting the combined efforts of two weaker titans instead of one titan who's just as strong as he is. This works really well because they still put up a great fight against Godzilla, but because there's two of them, it's always clear that Godzilla is the strongest out of the three monsters in the film. Anyways, I just love these things. They're so iconic in the fanbase at this point, and it's so crazy to think that I'm nostalgic for them. Like, isn't that insane that I'm nostalgic over a Monsterverse monster? Man, time really flies, huh? These guys are over a decade old now. And I'm just happy that it still seems like the fans love them, because I certainly do. Godzilla 2014 is my favorite Monsterverse movie, and the Mutos are such a big part of why I love it so much. They're threatening, they're great antagonists, and they're just really well designed. Gareth Edwards was truly such a gift to the Monsterverse. Not only did he give us one of the best looking Godzilla designs ever, but he also gave us antagonists that could stand toe to toe with some of Toho's very best. Anyways guys, that just about wraps up this video. I really hope you guys liked it. I worked pretty hard on this one. It was a lot of fun going through all the different monsters in this universe, and I learned a lot about them along the way. Say what you will about the Monsterverse, I know it has its ups and downs, I know the fanbase is pretty divided, but it really is incredible to think that we've had this franchise for over a decade now. It really has come a long way, hasn't it? And I really hope that it still has a long way to go. Anyways, I hope you guys had a good week. I hope you're enjoying Monarch Season 2 so far. I know I am. If you like this video, leave a like. If you want to see more, consider subscribing. I've got a lot more coming. If you made it this far into the video, thank you so much. I can't believe you just watched this whole thing. It's probably going to be like half an hour long. It means the world that you're keeping up with my content. It means the world that you're even here in the first place, even if this is your first time checking out the channel. Seriously, thank you so much. I appreciate each and every single one of you. Until next time, this is Zilla Kid signing out.